Well, hello everybody. Good to see you all again. Of course, I can't really see you, but you'll see me. Um, you've noticed I've taken my channel and I've took it to work with me. Yes, this is one of my work shirts. I've been working today too. Um, I've not really had the time for the layout. Unfortunately, it's summertime. I'm busting my rear end, mowing yards, taking care of trees, and odd and end jobs. This is what actually pays for the videos that you see coming out in the wintertime and in the fall and in the spring when I have the time. Um, it's hard work. It's a lot of hard work. And I'm not ashamed to say that I've actually been taking a little bit of time off due to pains in my back and shoulders and even neck. The worst part is my rear. Bouncing around on that tractor all day, going over roots and everything else, really gets to me. Now, I'm not making this video as a complaint. I love my job. My job is the best job in the world. I'm my own boss. I take care of other people's property in a way that, you know, they can't do themselves or they don't have the knowledge themselves. Landscaping is a multifaceted job. You really need to know what you're doing. You need to know the pH balance of the soil. You need to know the fertilization of the soil. You need to know the sunlight content that's actually getting to the ground. You have to know trees. You have to know different grasses. You have to know patterns of grasses. You have got to know your pests, your problems areas, and everything else. And keeping track of that in multiple yards is can be difficult. You can have two houses right beside each other. One might have a grub pocket in it, the other one might be perfect. You've got to know what pest is destroying that grass. You've got to know if it's a bad spot in the ground. Was there just too much pH there? Was there too little pH there? Is there just not enough fertilizer in the ground? Uh, Grass can change a square foot by square foot just from little itty bitty, teeny tiny differences. Like um, the ride along that I took you guys on, that was one full lap around a commercial lawn. You could tell that there were spots where I've got it perfect. It's a nice carpet, and it literally feels like a carpet. You can go lay on that thing, it feels comfortable. And then there's spots where it's pretty brown. There's almost no grass growing. Then there's spots where it's nothing but weeds. Grass can change foot by foot. Now, in my high concentration of moss, I know I've got a very acidic soil. So I've been spreading a lot of lime there. Some of my spots are bare that just needed fertilizer. Some of my spots are bare just because it needed grass seed because it had been so long under so much shade, the grass had literally died. Um, it comes to trees. It's you can have a tree that is fully green, branching out, new growth, everything else, and be completely dead. It's still using up its energy and producing new, but it can't support itself because it's dead. It's completely dead. You can tell that quite often by checking the bark. Is the bark chipping off? Is it getting bare in areas? Those are signs of the tree has died and died long before. If you've got a lot of limbs coming out of a tree, that tree's probably dead. Even though that limb that come down had plenty of green little leaves and everything else on it. The tree can't support it because the tree is dead. So even though that limb's still growing, that tree is dead. There's a multitude of signs that you can tell that a tree has actually died. And a lot of people don't understand these things. They go, well, it's still growing leaves, so it's got to be alive. I just had a customer today who loves trees. Saw a sprout coming off of a root stump. It was just a stump. And he said the tree's not dead. And I said, yes, this tree is completely dead. I could actually grab a hold of the stump and rip parts of it off by my bare hands. If that was a live, thriving tree, that would be impossible. It would literally be that tight. I might get little flakes off, not huge chunks. Um, the average person does not understand these things. I grew up a farmer. I know when ground is good, I know when ground is bad. There's a lot of good ground around me, but it's not taken care of properly to promote growth. And that's because there's a high acidity in the soil. The pH is low here. It's in a bowl, it's up in the mountains. Unfortunately, the runoff from many different things gets into the ground and it just takes the pH right out. Done. There's a lot of limestone in the area, so I don't know why that happens, but maybe it's just being concentrated to the limestone and it's not getting to where it needs it. Now, I'm going into this a little bit here because this has been my last two videos. I've been out doing my work. Unfortunately, I do not have a camera guy, and my tripod is buried underneath a bunch of stuff out there in my shed. But I'm getting into that part of it because my model railroad, I've had to go out, crawl underneath of it, go back into my shed towards the back, grab a tool, come back out, climb underneath the layout again. It's my layout is becoming more trouble than it's worth, to be honest with you. I'm not getting out of model railroading. I love it. I've always loved it. As a matter of fact, I've been out there 2 days ago to go get a tool, and I decided, well, I'm just going to run a train. My Kato, thanks Sparky, that thing fired up and went just fine. My one Broadway Limited import still shorts out. Don't know why. Can't figure it out. I don't know what it is, but those wheels make a half a revolution and then my DCC system shuts down on a perfectly straight track. I don't have any other problems with any other locomotives. It just shorts, DCC system shuts down, it's done. And then I'll take it off the track and I can run my other one. The same exact model, same exact company. I could put it on the track and it'll go. No problems. And it looks good, it sounds great, and everything else. My Model Power's running flawlessly. I bring that up because I have not cleaned the track since I did that track cleaning video that I got off of Ron's Trains and Things, where he used mineral spirits to clean the track completely and then used automotive no-ox, well, anti-ox. It's a very common automotive thing, especially in trailers and stuff like that. You put this grease on the contacts for your trailer lights, so it doesn't matter how many times they're plugged and unplugged, plugged and unplugged, they're always going to have contact. That's what the commercial application of that is. Yes, the guy that invented it is a model railroader. Alright, and he invented it, chemically engineered it, for running his trains. At the same time, this works in boats because it does not get rusted by water. It actually protects the middle of that well and protects the conductivity of that well, that you can put this in submerged salt water and that plug will not rust, corrode, or anything else and will still conduct electricity. The commercial application is great and it lasts years. I had not cleaned the track since I did that video. My layout is outside. It is in scale. It is DCC. The whole gamut is stacked against this layout of track not being clean, being completely puke dirty, I guess would be the best way to say it. My train's fired up and ran like if I had cleaned the track 5 minutes ago. Literally. They went complete laps. The steam engines didn't want to start right away. I took my Kato, sat it down. That little Canadian Pacific locomotive Went around the layout, 40 speed steps on 128, which is actually 126 in NCC. I don't know. I'm NCE, um, which is fine by me because I set it up to where my trains top out at a realistic speed. I lower my max voltage. I don't do it with the Kato, but I did it with my steamers. Steam engines run about 50 mile an hour max speed, and they can crawl. But I took that Kato, ran it around the layout about 6 laps, and then threw my steam engines, well, switched the steam engines back out to the main, and they all ran perfectly. My 2 model powers I've never had a problem with. They run flawlessly. A little lacking in pulling power, but they always work. The sound's great and everything else. They'll even work over the insulated frog turnouts that I use on the layout. The Broadway Limited Import doesn't care for them too much. It likes to shutter on those, and I don't know why. It's got a much longer wheelbase, much more pickups, and it doesn't like the insulated frogs on those turnouts. I don't know. An expensive locomotive should work, right? Uh, one, I didn't get a chance to ship it back into factory in time. I didn't fill out the warranty card in time because when I got them, it was early spring. Business was just picking up again, and work hobby. I didn't get a chance to send it back in. It's been off the layout for months. Um, I really wish I'd have sent it back in, but I didn't get a chance to. I did learn when replacing traction tires that the little pins that actually hold the driving rod on are actually little bolts, and I'm used to pins, so I was pulling on it like a pin, and I bent one of the connecting rods. My fault. I will admit that. I'm an idiot. I didn't think it was a screw because it doesn't say anything about them being little bolts or screws in the manual, because the manual really does not show an exploded view of these things. Who would have known? The model power shows an exploded view, but it's very complicated to get it apart. So I kind of leave them alone because I don't need to do anything with them. There's a little area at the bottom where I can open up, put grease in it when I need to. I could put a drop of oil on the back of the motor bearing because I could get to it from the back end. I can't really put a drop of oil in the front of the motor bearing, but who knows. Now, I did learn that none of my steam locomotives like that 12-inch radius curve. That is at the very front edge of my layout right now on the way out. That curves around, goes through a bridge and curves back around. Now, I originally wanted to do that as a 15-inch curve, but I had to squeeze it tighter because of the space between the power plant and it. It's just a little narrow in my mind, so I went ahead and sharpened the curve a little bit so that way I'd have room. And keep in mind that I was planning this layout for diesel operations. I didn't think about what if I ever wanted to do steam. Is quite frankly, the only reason why I'm doing steam right now is an uncle of mine that I dearly care about had passed away, and I didn't even know he was sick. And it's not that I didn't communicate with my family, it's nobody communicated back to me that he was even ill, or else I would have ran down to Union Bridge and visited with him for a little bit just to, kind of square my piece with the man. He was a great man, taught me a lot, and he was born in 1935. So I decided, that night, all right, we're flipping the switch. This was after I got the 2 steam locomotives that I had been wanting, just because I've always wanted early American steam locomotives. I love the design. The American, uh, Magul, you know, these classic designs of the mid to late 1800s, just beautiful. And, it really brings such a history to a layout to see something that old on it. Like, hey, this could be part of real life, because they've got a little sidetrack with the museum piece. They've got something old sitting back in a rust pile. You know, it brings that sense of there was a time before what you're seeing now on the layout. That's why I like to see, a wrecked car at the bottom of the hill with weeds growing through it, stuff like that on a layout. Is because it gives a sense that this didn't just appear. This has been there for a long time. And a lot of people don't do that. They want just what you see today, right now. They don't go down the back alleys. They don't go down the dirt roads and see, oh, look, there's an old 1950s dump pile there. A bunch of cars, refrigerators, stuff like that have been there since before EPA regulations stopped it, where they were just dumping stuff off the side of the road down a hill just to fill in the hill. Um, it happens everywhere. I've seen it out in Arizona desert. There's a car that broke down alongside the road, and it's just been sitting there ever since. A 1930s car sitting there, right alongside the highway. You would think somebody would have moved it by now, but no, it just sits there and rusts. Now, granted, it'll take forever for it to turn to dust because it's in a dry environment, but these little pieces of history, I've literally gone landscaping on acreage of property that homeowners never went back that far. They want it cleaned up, but they've never been to that upper pasture. They've never been to that bottom pasture. They know they've got all this acreage, but it's never been cleaned up. There's overgrowth and everything else. And I'm going down through there with a riding mower with a sickle bar on the end of a weed eater, getting the bigger stuff. And I'll come across old cars, old tractors, just old stuff everywhere. And they're like, oh, I never even knew that was down there. Or, yeah, my grandfather parked that down here in the 20s. Things like that really hit me. I love to find old stuff. I found whole homes underneath brush. We literally thought it was just trees. That's how bad the overgrowth is on some of these houses. And we cut it back, and then all of a sudden we hit stone. And we're like, wait a minute. So we go a couple more feet, and we hit stone again, and then we get to looking underneath the brush, and there's a foundation there. This is a whole house. It just looks like a bunch of overgrown trees with a bunch of vines growing through it. And here's a house, a barn, a shed underneath of it. It's amazing to find those things, and if I get another cleanup job like that, I'll be more than happy to take you guys along, see what we can find. That's history, and that sense of history should be incorporated into our layouts. Now, getting back to the problem with the Maryland Central. The Maryland Central is not going goodbye, but I need access to my shed, my big tent. At the same point in time, I want a layout. I've gone through with Atlas Right Track software. I have designed using a 15-inch minimum radius for the main, and I believe it's 12.5-inch radius for sidings and stuff like that. Actually, mass majority of it is probably going to be, right around 15 inches. Now, I did this, I designed it. I have it takes about the same amount of flex track as what I've already got out on the layout, so I'm going to be recycling as much as possible. This actually will take about the same number of turnouts, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. And yeah, my parakeets beside me are having a ball. They, it's it's a complete redesign. I am making this a C shape with east and westbound staging. It is going to go, about 3 feet beside the door. Have a turnaround, come back down a 2 foot by 8 foot section, go around the curve, and then come back out on the other side. I will still have Frederick Yard. I will still have the Dickerson area. I will still have Myersville, and I will still have Hancock. But because of the way the trains are actually routed, I'm also going through Halfway, otherwise known as um, South Hagerstown, Maryland. This is where the Western Maryland yard was, but I'm not doing the Western Maryland. I'm not even doing a connection to Western Maryland there at Halfway. I'm gonna say that it's further south than what um, the Western Maryland is, and they never built a connection between the two because of terrain and competition. Maybe the ICC said no, you can't interchange with the Western Maryland at this point. You can only have your line go through there. It's not a far stretch. The ICC prevented the Frederick and Frederick and Pennsylvania from attaching to the Western Maryland and Keymore, Maryland. They were not allowed to attach. Now, after Hurricane Agnes, which wiped out the bridge at the Monocacy River, and the Pennsylvania Railroad stopped running trains down that line after they took it over, it became completely abandoned. From the Pennsylvania line all the way to Hanover is completely tore up. The tracks from the Pennsylvania line south to Frederick are all still there, but I'd say only about 2/3 of that is in operation. The Maryland Midland operates from just north of Walkersville to Tawnytown, and then from Tawnytown up, that line is completely abandoned. And from just north of Walkersville, there where um, the quarry is, till you actually get to Frederick limits, it's actually right behind the new Lowe's in Frederick off of 15 and 26. That is operated by the Walkersville Southern. I do volunteer there. I want to get back down there as soon as possible. Unfortunately, I've had conflicting schedules, and the gas prices skyrocketing has prevented me from making that. I think it's 30-mile trip. 30 miles there, 30 miles back. It's a lot of gas out of my pickup truck. Now, I'm just doing the best that I can with what I got, and I am doing a complete redesign on my layout. I'm still using the same industries. As a matter of fact, I've added more industries, but I am going to have to make this a completely different way. That way I can store tools and have the layout and have a workbench and everything inside that tent. The nice part about that tent shed is no matter where I move, I've got a spot for the layout. The nice part about how I'm going to build this layout is I'm building it in modules. Is that when I get to my next home where I might have the room or have a small basement or something like that, I can redesign the modules instead of redesigning the layout and use most of what I've already built to just continue it out. Well, I've been rambling here for about 25 minutes. I will bid you all a farewell for now. Have a good one. Any questions or comments or anything, I would be happy to answer either on what I do for a living or my layout. Now, I do have one other hobby. It's fishing, and I do have a 14-foot canoe now that uses a trolling motor. So maybe I might take you guys out on that one day if I get the chance to go fishing, because I haven't even been fishing in 2 months now because I've been working my butt off. So y'all have a good one.